All right, straight up, we're going to get started. I don't care what Tom says. Welcome. I like hearing all the conversation bright and early. I just had a meeting with developers, and there is going to be $100 million worth of investment in downtown Salem in the next couple months. So
Right.
it's a good thing we're talking about the community impact. I'm getting an update on what's happening with the homeless situation in and around our town, unsheltered, excuse me. So I'm PJ Sullivan with Hagen Hamilton. Welcome. Thanks for being here. We'll get started. There's a sign-up sheet going around if you wouldn't mind signing that. Excellent. Well, we're going to get started today with a update. Nicole Palmateer-Hazelbaker, who is our chamber lobbyist working for us down at the Capitol building.
All right, good morning. Thank you for giving me a little bit of time. It's a pleasure to be here. I talked flight last night from DC. We think things are crazy here. Not all, I'll give you that. So as we talked about last month, I think that for at least what we're seeing on the business side, this is a session with the supermajorities where you are seeing full labor measures shoved through as fast as they can go. Like, let's do it all, let's do everything. I had to guess why, from my campaign side, I would say eventually the Ds will have to take some sort of a revenue vote. If they want this transportation package, they're going to have to. There's not enough. Like any other way. When you take a revenue vote, you lose some seats. So they're doing all of the labor moves first, get those done before they do that. Then we go to campaign and then we start losing some of those numbers. But it's pretty. We talked about Senate Bill 916, which is unemployment benefits for striking workers. That did pass the Senate floor. It's now on its way to the House. It has not yet been scheduled. We assume it passed. That was one of the highest priorities coming in for labor, and it should go. And that affects public and private, so everybody across the board. I think yesterday, Clackamas County announced that it looks like they're going to have a strike. So it would be a very interesting test if that strike happened after this bill passes. So it would be the first opportunity to see what this really means. Another piece that I have been on behalf of some of my clients really digging into is, for those of you like Rich Duncan will love to hear prevailing wage. Don't we love prevailing wage? So House Bill 2688 came at the very last minute, as lots of ideas do, as Commissioner Cameron will remember. 2688 is a new prevailing wage bill. It's moving. It's definitely going to go somewhere. And this time, if you look at prevailing wage in the Willamette, we did actually an excellent article on it yesterday and talked about kind of the growth of prevailing wage. Prevailing wage continues to grow into a number of areas. This one looks at the manufacturing side. So there are quite a large number of new groups that would be affected by this that haven't necessarily been included. Some of those areas had included like modular housing. That's why I've applied in there. So we've been working on getting those out. Looks at the differences in custom projects, standard projects, bespoke. And I was talking to a legislator and they said, like, bespoke? I said, I haven't heard bespoke since I watched Bridgerton last year. Like, I have barely heard that. But again, the idea is that it would apply prevailing wage to bespoke offsite fabrication, pre-construction, and assembly of construction work. So again, continuing to expand prevailing wage out. And as Rich and others of you in the construction industry will tell you, that only just adds cost to it and it makes it very challenging. This would be only to public works projects, but all of them. So whether it's a restroom, at a state park, or whether it's a school, but affordable housing is in most areas excluded right now because of the governor's focus on affordable housing. It's pretty aggressive bill, and it's moving along like wildfire. I've had a lot of questions about the alcohol and wine, the beer and wine tax. So that bill was heard, significant opposition. It is a tax bill. It would require a supermajority vote, but it was moved to the Joint Committee on Addiction and Community Response, which means there's no deadline for the bill. So it will kind of continue to keep churning in the process. Things do. It is a bill brought forward by one of the two co-chairs, Representative Tana Sanchez from North Portland. So while normally we'd be like, we can defeat this one, The co-chairs of Ways and Means, they swing a very big stick. This is her highest priority. She wants this as a way to continue to lower the use of alcohol. For those who work in the industry would say that's happening. The sales are not as good right now. The wine and the beer industry are really suffering. Spirits are as well. You know, consumption is down for whatever reason. So this would just be another piece of that too. This week we saw a bill, and what it would do is it's House Bill 3940, and it would add a 5 cent, they say it's a fee, we say it's a tax, to all beverages sold. So soda, to water, you know, any of the alcohol. And what it would do is be creating a fund to help with wildfire. So I don't think anybody, certainly those from the Detroit area, would disagree. Wildfire is certainly a significant issue in the state, and how we deal with that is significant. However, people do not like the idea of adding a 5 cent on top of it that isn't something that's refunded like a current is right now. Had first hearings. The fire service has put a lot of other pieces into this bill, like policy pieces as well. I think that kind of weights it down. But what we are starting to see is the floating of these smaller revenue proposals, probably leading into what we imagine will be a very big proposal. They need to raise about 3.1 billion to get their transportation package across the line. Not sure how they're going to do that. Right now, they don't have the votes to make that happen. But I think that, you know, as we continue to move forward, we have a deadline on Wednesday, the 9th. That will be the first big deadline where bills and policy have to be out of that committee to keep going. We lost some of them from the scheduling deadline. We'll lose a lot more here on the 9th. And then we kind of move forward for the next, we still have 3 months of session to go. We haven't been there very long. It feels like we've been there for, you know, the 7 years my child has been born, but we've only been there for 2 months. We've got 3 months to go. So the real work is about to start. This is where, you know, I do a lot of work in appropriation. I do, you know, a lot of work on the money side of it. This is where we get to work. Now we're starting to, you know, really have those in-depth conversations, spending, about priorities of our clients, pieces like that, and seeing where all these bills that are getting shoved down to Ways and Means, which if any are going to finally see the light of day. And I think Ryan would agree. Not a lot of them see the light of day. But, you know, they are ongoing conversations that we're going to continue to have. While the state agency budgets have continued to have their informational hearing, last week, the subcommittee co-chairs had to submit their list of, for example, the policy option packages they thought should go forward or different pieces of it. It does seem that these co-chairs are seeking a bit more input from the subcommittees, which normally hasn't been the case. They're asking for that input. That was one of the deadlines last week, was to give those recommendations. After Wednesday, we clean up all of our bill lists. You will, you know, kind of have that chance, look at as the dust has settled, where we are and what's happening and what we really are looking to deal with as we move forward in the session. But I want to go over my time. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I think it's good that the chamber has a presence. Yes. Go ahead.
Nicole Palmateer-Hazelbaker, Oregon Cattlemen's Association. Yes. And just for the awareness of those in the room, all of you thought leaders, 3940, not only it's been dubbed a bottle bill, but all of the proposed fees or revenue streams that are in that bill, the bottle bill is just one of 6. So while it's being dubbed the bottle bill, that's not the beginning and the end of the conversation. And wildfire is a statewide problem. We need to find a statewide answer. And that's why the wildfire task force came up with 6 funding mechanisms, and bottle bill, that additional 5 cents is just one of 6. Thank you for bringing that up.
Like I said, it's a good thing that we have a chamber that's engaged, and this chamber helps to get all the other chambers across the state engaged, and that's an important thing as well for talking to our legislators. I mean, if you haven't been in to talk to your legislator, there's a bill that you're worried about, I encourage you to go down there. They don't want to hear from lobbyists. I mean, they do, but they don't.
They really don't.
They want to hear from how it's going to affect you and your business. But make the time. It does make a difference. And with that, we're going to skip Commissioner Scanlon right now. We're going to go right to Jeff Gordon's brother, Jeremy. For an update.
That's right.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm the black sheep of the family. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Jeremy Gordon. I've met many of you, but for those of you I haven't, I'm a Polk County Commissioner, have been since 2021. Before that, I was Mayor of Falls City. I worked in higher ed most of my professional career and moved to Oregon about 10 years ago from the Twin Cities via Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So it's me in a nutshell. Um, so why am I interested in homelessness? Well, like I said, I moved to Falls City in 2015. If you're familiar with Falls City, it is a former thriving timber town, thriving in the 80s, and has experienced generational poverty that's fairly deep and rural since. And I noticed, of course, lived amongst deep poverty as a community leader there, and worked on getting services to folks and getting folks to services. Um, and when I became commissioner, I asked our social services folks, what are the biggest challenges facing families? And housing was the number one, and a very tough one to manage in a very under-resourced community. We didn't provide direct services to people experiencing homelessness. We built a very robust prevention system so that when families and individuals experience an emergency, they know where to go, and those can get resolved before it kind of cascades into something worse. However, we did notice that the number of homeless people in Polk County, in rural Polk County, was increasing at a rapid pace. We had to really start to focus on that work more intentionally. So I represent Polk County on the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance. Just to give you some background national data, homelessness has increased in 2023 by about 18%. The point in time count nationally saw about 770,000 people experiencing homelessness. And that is necessarily a drastic undercount. So that is at least 770,000 people. Roughly 1/3 of those nationally are families, people in families. The one specialty population for which homelessness decreased is veterans. That decreased by 8%. All other demographics from youth to seniors increased dramatically. Why? I think it's because we've sustained support, both politically and with resources, over a long period of time for that population, and we've done well. Since 2009, that number of veterans, homeless veterans, has decreased by 55%. So we can model a lot of what we do based on that, I think. Locally in Marion and Polk County, our last true unsheltered and sheltered homeless point in time count was in 2023. We saw about 1,600 people. Again, necessarily an undercount. About 27% of those folks identified having alcohol or substance abuse challenges. We're seeing an increase in families and youth. And one message I want to leave you with is, before I started this work, when I thought of a homeless person, the stereotypes entered my head. But we're seeing people across the demographic spectrum in our community. Every demographic is experiencing this. Folks from all walks of life, and we need to hesitate to stereotype. Is this how I advance slides? How do I do this? Oh, this is I gotta go back. Sorry. Okay. So February 2025 marked the 5-year anniversary of the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance. Okay. So what is a continuum of care? What is a COC? It's a HUD designated entity. In our case, we are a Marion and Polk County COC. There are about 460 of these nationwide, 8 in Oregon. And if you're not part of an intentional COC, you're part of what's called the balance of state, which our region was part of for a while, but we did not get the resource that we deserved. So in 2019, we were recognized by HUD thanks to the leadership of Mayor Clark, Janet Carlson, and others in the community. Started the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance. So we are not a service provider, a direct service provider. Our function is strategic planning to apply for and distribute HUD funds, federal funds, to coordinate efforts and to collect data in a uniform system to both improve our service delivery efforts and to report out on what we're seeing and to improve our approach. So this is a snapshot of the Alliance board members. You can see it's a very wide berth of folks. Missing from that is the Willamette Health Council. They're a new member. And we're hearing interest from other jurisdictions, Woodburn, Silverton, working on Dallas. But people want to be a part of this, want to have a voice for their community at the table. So you see folks from government, folks from the health sector, the school system, and really love to explore the business community as board membership as we kind of reimagine our charter and board membership. Let's see. This is a snapshot of our structure. It's fairly outdated, but what you can see there is we have the Alliance Board, then we have what's called a collaborative committee, which is a spot for everybody to come to engage in the Homeless Alliance, whether they need training, whether they need to know what's going on, learn about funding opportunities and the like. And then we have our data groups, our Homeless Management Information System Users Groups, and our Coordinated Entry Committee. We recently elevated the Health and Safety Committee directly under the board and hired a health services and housing liaison funded by the Willamette Health Council to help integrate those sectors of services. So lots of folks at the table. Our mission is simply to develop an evidence-based system of services, including stable housing, designed to meet the unique and complex needs of adults, youth, children, and families in Marion and Polk counties who are at risk of or are experiencing homelessness. And we are in the middle of a 5-year refresh of our strategic plan. Let me grab my notes. So the main categories of our strategic plan is to understand our community, to pursue local quantitative and qualitative data collection and analysis to inform our work, to develop and improve the coordinated system of care and services. And that is basically to support our providers who are doing all of the work on the ground every day, and support multi-sector systems approach, including health and other sectors. That's a challenge to integrate because the state and federal agencies that distribute these services don't integrate real well. So at the local level, that's our job. And part of that integration of services is, of course, emergency sheltering, transitional housing, and permanent housing. And then to maximize resources, we need to leverage everything we can. This is a very expensive endeavor, very labor intensive, and it's highly systemic. So what we are doing, what our providers are doing, are helping folks in a very challenging within a very challenging housing environment. And then finally, to increase participation, which is why I'm here today. All right, so I mentioned data, and Tom, let me know if I'm going over on time. So there's an annual point in time count. Many of you have probably been involved in that. We did not conduct an unsheltered count last year because of the heavy lift of the governor's emergency order work, and several other counties in Oregon also didn't participate in the unsheltered count, but we did participate in the sheltered count, which is a HUD requirement. And we just finished our 2025 unsheltered and sheltered count, and those results will be published later in April. And early indications are showing a decrease in the number of unsheltered homelessness, increase in the number of sheltered homelessness, because we've been able to expand capacity considerably thanks to the governor's emergency order. A reduction in Salem, and an increase in some of our rural areas, particularly with youth and families. Part of that is because we've expanded services over there, and we can connect with folks who are struggling much easier. And I mentioned the Homeless Management Information System. The idea here is that we all providers use the same system. We're at about an 87% participation rate. And we can share demographic information. It's a single assessment. We can coordinate services through that system, learn about their previous living situation, and track their exits to better living situations. This is kind of some of our reporting requirements to HUD. I won't bore you with that, but HUD in recent history has changed to a method to really encourage and incentivize COCs to track their performance over time, which is a good thing. So just a bit about the services. Many of these are in the Salem community. Of course, I'm Polk County centric, but DJ will fill you in as an expert and provider. So I'm having trouble advancing this. I don't know. Oh, there we go. So street outreach. So street outreach, these are folks who are in community all over the region, connecting with folks in cars, living outside, living in places not fit for human habitation. And this is just a good snapshot of the number of organizations involved in this work. Hence the reason why we need to coordinate well, right? In Polk County, we have a once-a-month meeting where all service providers interacting with folks experiencing homelessness get together. We're doing by-name case conferencing. We're solving problems in real time for people and making sure we're not duplicating our efforts. Next up is emergency shelter. This is to get people off the street into safe and secure environments. We have our nightly shelters, our duration shelters, which are day shelters, and our warming shelter network as well. The Community Action Agency administers that. That's a very successful program and one that is tenuously funded on an ongoing basis, but saves lives and gets people into the continuum of care. The sheltering is low barriers. So the higher the barriers of entry into the continuum of care, the less likely you are to reduce aggregate homelessness in your community. This has been shown time and time again through data. You see it in Houston, you see it in Salt Lake City, you see it right here in Salem. We need a certain number of low barrier shelters. That doesn't mean that we can't have recovery housing and recovering transitional housing. That's all very important to the continuum, but that low barrier piece is very key. Let's see. And I mentioned transitional shelters. We have several in the area. I mentioned the warming shelters. This is the warming shelter. We have in Polk and Marion County, Salem. Let's see. There we go. And a rapid rehousing program. This was significantly funded through the governor's emergency order. Is an incredibly successful program. This is getting folks directly from shelter or literal homelessness into housing rapidly, mainly for low and moderate needs folks. These are the group of organizations doing that. We're getting folks, domestic violence survivors into housing, veterans, families, individuals, and that's been incredibly successful. We've been able to rehouse over 600 households within 2 years with this program. And then permanent supportive housing. This is for folks with higher needs, long-lasting needs that need higher level of care throughout their housing life. So you've heard of many of these. Salem Housing Authority has done tremendous work standing up Redwood Crossings. Shangri-La has a wonderful program. Church of the Park is entering this space. So here's just a list of recent programs that have been stood up. The Salem Navigation Center hosting 75 beds. Community Action Agency opened an unaccompanied youth shelter in Monmouth, which was a huge feat and a huge service to our community. The Confederate Tribes of Grand Run has an affordable home ownership project of 35 units and has a micro shelter community on their reservation, informed and advised by Church at the Parks model. United Way expanded their safe sleep shelter from 19 to 50 beds. We have the brand new 36-bed family shelter. Catholic Community Services renovated a warehouse to expand a family shelter operated by Church at the Park. These are all emergency order funded programs stood up in the last couple of years. And there's more. So we've done an incredible amount of work, and you should be proud of your community. Salem has really, really stepped up. So just a quick snapshot of the governor's emergency order. I mentioned that we have successfully moved 600 households, who are unsheltered, into stable permanent housing. We've added 217 additional shelter beds in the community. We have about a little over 1,000 total, and more staff. No staff, no mission. And it requires a lot of folks to do this work, particularly for our 24/7, 365 facilities. And I can't thank these folks enough for stepping up. This is adding to the workforce in the area, giving folks good experience, and employing a lot of people. I'd like to talk about rural Polk County for a moment. I know this is a Salem Chamber, but So when I came on board, I think the community in Polk County had a hard time understanding that there was a homelessness problem. We didn't see the congregate unmanaged camping outside. Folks would drive past Salem to get to Polk County and think to themselves, well, at least that's not happening in my community. We saw numbers rising rapidly. And before it got very visible and very untenable, we got to work. And the community came along. It was tough because it's tough to convince your community of a problem they don't experience, right? But I think leadership compels us to do that. So Family and Community Outreach is this awesome department at the county where we host service integration teams, 5 of them in every school district in Polk County, and focus on preventative services, like I mentioned earlier. And just in the span of time that we've been doing this work, we've been able to rehouse 369 individuals. This is rural Polk County, a population of about 50,000, 178 of which are children, 111 parents, and 80 single individuals. We did this through the Rapid Rehousing Program, thanks to the Governor's Emergency Order and Community Action Agency. We have a direct link from our Rapid Rehousing Program to Section 8 vouchers. We've strengthened our relationship with our housing authority. And then 89 folks just housed in general market-based rents. And we have a wonderful team of landlords. We want to keep landlords renting. Every landlord that exits this space is one less unit that we can utilize as a community. So we support our landlords, and they have come to the table and appreciate the integration of services and help for their tenants, because nobody likes to evict. It is a painful process, and they would much rather have their tenants supported and helped rather than go through painful eviction processes. So doing really great work in Polk County. It's a smaller scale than the full continuum, but we did not do this work intentionally 2-3 years ago. And I'm glad we are, and it eases pressure on Salem systems. And it's important to keep people in their communities where their supports are, where their families are, where their schools are, where their jobs are. So good work all around. I think I've gone way over my time. So thank you for engaging and learning. Please, happy to answer questions today or anytime. And I'll hand it off to the next speaker.
Yeah. You mentioned Janet Carlson. If you can keep her in your thoughts and prayers, because Janet, her grandson has got an affliction that no doctor has been able to identify yet, and the prognosis is not great for him. And I can get it there with her daughter, so just keep her in your thoughts and prayers. That'd be an excellent thing to do. Well, we've got this group of business leaders and elected people in the room. It's a good time to say thank you for the taxes that your business pays, for the taxes that your employees pay. And this, when I go to a fundraiser for any of the nonprofits in our area, it's all of you that are there giving your money after you pay your taxes and your employees pay their taxes. Support these, you know, the social fabric of our communities. Thank you for that. We'll move now to DJ Vincent.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. DJ Vincent, Church of the Park, proud chamber member seeking the health of our city here in Salem. And I've been doing this work with unsheltered and unhoused folks since 2007. Our mission is to create this table of love and acceptance for every person in our community, so that someday we could say nobody's on a sidewalk or in a park in our city, and everybody feels like they're cared for and that they belong in our city. We do this right now through living out these values that you see of seeing with compassion, building relationships. We do that with volunteers, as well as believing that the folks that we're sheltering are part of the solution, that they're going to live out these values for other folks. Our organization is very peer driven. Over half the people that work on our staff have been unsheltered themselves. We have 4 functioning program priorities. The first one, collaborative navigation. That's basically outreach services that I'll describe. Then we believe in the power of emergency sheltering to provide that sense of safety and stability for folks. We believe in the dignity of work, and that whether it's volunteer work or paid work, that people almost until their last day want to do meaningful things for other folks. And then we are entering into this supportive housing area because we want to be in long-term healing community with folks. these are the numbers from last year, and I do have printouts of our annual report if anybody wants to dig more into the numbers that I present today, but we were able to see 264 folks move into permanent housing, as was mentioned. That 522 number is folks that sometimes we refer to these other agencies, and they're the ones who end up putting them in permanent housing, but we're a part of the process. 761 folks sheltered, and then the difference there, that 1,911, that means that's in our outreach services area. So in outreach, we do have those adult, young adult specific and Polk County teams. And then safe parking is a really important program that we've been partnering with the city of Salem on for 5 years. The headline of our newsletter is Josh's story this month. A gentleman who literally never lost his job, but did lose his housing and found the safe parking network, able to get a shower every day, able to have a safe place to be. And now he's paying for his apartment again. He just needed that bridge space where he wasn't incurring tickets and was able to, get himself ready for work each day. I'm super excited about what TJ shared about downtown investment. We have a safety team that serves our sites, but some other nonprofit services as well. And we're very interested in helping with downtown work, where we have state certified safety team members paired with community health workers to help people find their best next destination. So then the emergency shelters, the last time I was sharing in this space, we had one non-congregant shelter, the Village of Hope, that serves adults. That shelter is on Center Street there. Now we have a family shelter, a young adult space. We've opened the house in Dallas, and we'll open the Monmouth shelter in June. The Village of Hope is right now getting some ADA improvements, because we see this reality that half the folks that we serve there are seniors, and many of them have mobility challenges. This is a picture of the folks we served last year with the 80 beds there. We're able to use each bed more than, one time in a year. It's not a night by night shelter. People are certified a month at a time, and they're supposed to be engaging case management and peer support work to stabilize their health, their income, and their housing while they're with us. And so even though it's low barrier entry, that doesn't mean it's low expectations in terms of the way we want to help people. You can see the average stay there is just over 6 months to help someone launch back into the community. Again, we're seeing really troubling numbers that I've been giving lots of reports on over at the legislature, that you can see in 4 years, we served 484 folks who are 55 plus, but just last year, we served 319 individuals. Last night, of the 80 beds that are available for adults, 55 of them were filled with senior folks. And then the last number is the most startling one. On our outreach wait list to get into shelter, 370 folks who are older individuals in our community. The family site is our largest site. We can serve about 40 households at a time, 132 beds, all filled last night. A nonprofit director of a group here in Salem called me yesterday saying, I've got a single mom, works for us. She's losing her housing. Do you have a space for her tonight? The economic factors driving families into homelessness are very real right now. You could see that the average length of stay at our family shelter is less than individuals. There are great supports. On our site, we have an office set up for outside agencies. We partner with anybody and everybody that works with families in the community, especially folks like Family Building Blocks. But DHS comes in every week and just sets up camp and works with people with their support specialists, getting folks set up with all the benefits that they can. Our young adult site, we know that these folks are just at the beginning of their journey. Most of the folks are referred to us through the foster care system or parole and probation at Marion County. We get them connected at Chemeketa for education services. We're really excited to be opening up our own training kitchen to help a lot of these folks get food service, ready so that they can be productive in our community. You can see their length of stay is less than 6 months. We would actually be okay with it being closer to 2 years because, we want them to launch successfully and not be coming back to us at this young adult shelter site. We are very excited. It's been a long and relationship building journey in Polk County to get the Dallas house open, but already we've seen with just able to serve 2 households at a time right now. We're already on our second flight of households in just 1 quarter of work there. And so then I mentioned work. So we do a lot of workforce development, helping the folks that are on our staff get more certifications, more capacity to get jobs in the community. We do have a community health worker training, like our partners at Community Action, to really expand the holistic work. This isn't just, 3 meals and a bed. It is helping people enter into a new healthy lifestyle. And then the training kitchen in partnership with Catholic Community Services will be coming online this year, and we're really excited about that. I keep getting as many meetings as possible with TJ to talk about a downtown, cleanup crew that we can put people to work, making sure our sidewalks are clear. There's like a little mock-up of what the kitchen will look like when we open it. Hopefully I could tour everybody here through it. Then we do know that housing is the end goal for people not being unsheltered. And so we took over operation of a home for women exiting homelessness. And so we serve 28 women there. We're in partnership with some private developers on future cottages, cottage cluster communities. We are working with Salem Housing Authority on providing more and more support for people who are housed in aftercare so that they can continue to be successful. And I think I'm hitting my 10 minutes. And so always happy to talk about after the meeting.
Thank you, DJ. Appreciate that. We'll now move to maybe Marshall. Well, I've learned former pastor and Red Sox fan, current Red Sox fan.
All right. Well, my name is Andrew Marshall. I'm the Associate Director for Sheltering over our sheltering services and emergency services for Community Action here in Salem. Very happy to be a part of this panel and just all the good work that's being done. I was hired in 2021, came in to set up our second shelter, which is the Arches Inn, the old Super 8 on Hawthorne. And since I came on board in 2021, about every 9 months, we've stood up another shelter. So the need's been great. The partnerships with the city, with the state have been great in getting us moving forward. I just want to give kind of a little overview for Community Action for those that might not be familiar with Community Action, and then specifically the things that we've been able to do this past year, and give some updates on kind of where we're going with some of these things. So Community Action, comes from, we've been around for over 50 years. It came out of Lyndon B. Johnson's War on Poverty back in the 1960s, which was back in, the 1900s, as the young people call them. And so it's been a lot of work, and we have a lot that we're doing in Marion and Polk County. Appreciate all the folks that are partnering with us, and it's really to empower people into self-sufficiency. It's not just to get them off the street, but to get them stable, get them self-sufficient, so they can be a part of the community, get jobs, be part of what we all just kind of consider as normal life. And so our vision is to continue to do this work and work ourselves out of a job. I think that would be the ideal for any of us. Not to have this be a problem, but since it is, we are working diligently to to move people from homelessness into housing. A lot of what we do you support energy assistance, reentry services, and early childhood education. So Head Start and those kinds of things are what our agency does as well. All right, and so we're client-centered, harm reduction focused. We don't fit people into programs. We try to develop programs around people and their needs. So we try to find funding and resources in order to meet the needs that we're seeing in the community all around us. We serve as an organizer of community-wide resources and also as a direct service provider and a strong advocate for those living in poverty. So let me give you an Arches Project overview. The Arches Project is part of Community Action, is both our shelter and housing initiatives. The Arches Project is the center of our crisis response work. We operate across 4 key service areas: basic needs like meals and hygiene, supportive services like outreach and benefits navigation, shelter, including emergency and transitional beds, with housing navigation that leads to long-term stable outcomes. And these programs and services are breaking the cycle of homelessness and restoring hope one person at a time. We would love it if there was just a panacea. There's like one piece of legislation that needed to be passed, one thing. But because the issues around homelessness are multifaceted, then we have to have a multifaceted approach. So some of our projects, the Arches Inn, this is what I was hired to do. I'd been the program manager for a men's low-barrier shelter in Metro West Boston prior to coming back to Oregon. Have no fear, I'm a native Oregonian. I'm not an outsider. But yeah, I did find an affinity for the Red Sox while I was out there. And so came back and we had legislation that had been passed in order for nonprofits to purchase hotels and convert those into shelter. This model is distinct in that it gives a person an actual locking door, gives them their own restroom facilities. And so when you talk about folks that have a lot of trauma, have a lot of continued fear from having been on the street, this provides a level of stability that is very, very significant. Just in 2024, we had 117 people sheltered. It's over 17,000 bed nights. We had 24 households permanently housed. This also houses the inn houses a medical respite program for people coming out of, let's say, out of the Salem hospital that have an acute condition, allows them a place to heal. And so oftentimes when we have something done, let's say you had a surgery, a minor surgery, what does the doctor say? Just keep it clean and dry. And if you're living in a tent, you're living on the street, clean and dry are 2 things that are almost impossible. So the medical respite program allows people to have a place to recover from those acute conditions. And meanwhile, they're paired with case management as are all of our clients. And so that we move them from that instability to stability to self-sufficiency and into permanent housing. The Arches Lodge was our second hotel conversion, also a second round of that particular funding. The Arches Lodge houses our veteran program. And so we had 163 people sheltered at the lodge. 143 were veterans, 31 of those were permanently housed. And the representative from the VA said that this is the nicest veteran shelter they've ever seen. Currently, and I'll double back on the inn a little bit, both of these facilities are undergoing major renovations. The inn was slated to have renovations start in 2022. So I think I might have heard there might be some construction related people here that might know something about delays and how things, all the hoops and all of that. And so we are moving forward finally, after having gone through some hoops and some protracted delays, because these buildings are old. The inn was built in 1988, was not sprinklered, not have an elevator. So those are 2 major things, kitchen installations and expansions in both of these facilities so that we're able to provide meals at all these locations. And I'm watching my time, so I apologize for speaking so fast. The Navigation Center was opened, it's been open about 1.5 years. It's a little different. It's a congregate shelter. It has rapid rehousing built into its model. So we see as these folks come in, they're automatically rolled into rapid rehousing. They're automatically in that process. And so we served 171 folks last year at the Navigation Center, and we had 57 permanently housed. And we also we have 75 beds there. 15 of those are diversion beds for Salem PD. So they're able to, if pull someone off the street, be able to, someone that's in very acute need, and then be able to automatically place them into a bed and have them in a safe place. And our day center, this is the most visible. Everybody knows, I think, if you are in Salem, then you are familiar with the day center. This is the most visible. This is where the folks come to us that are in the most need. They're the ones that are still living on the street, still facing the kind of that daily trauma of that insecurity and instability. We served 2,910 people through our day center. Those are unique individuals. So almost 3,000 people at least one time utilized the day center. As was mentioned before, as Jeremy mentioned, the pit count is always an undercount. So anytime that you see numbers on how many unhoused in our community, it is always less because we don't always find them. They are not always visible. They're not always coming for services. And so the day center is really that touchstone. Get showers and laundry and meals, have a place to actually collect mail, get access to supports like healthcare, housing, and benefits so that they can get referred to other programs and programs within our own agency. You can see on there over 46,000 meals provided. So the day center is definitely, like I say, the most visible. Most of you, if you're driving around town, you would not know where our other shelters are unless you actually knew that they were there. Very proud of like the Arches Inn, for example. I think of the 3 hotels that are kind of in that chunk. The shelter is the nicest hotel, but we take pride in that. But there's a lot of work, obviously, still to be done. Our warming shelters, as mentioned, apologize, there's a typo there. We had 441 people served in our warming shelters. In 2024, we had 22 activation nights. Really, the warming shelters are the frontline defense when it gets cold, because we see so many folks coming into our shelter programs that have conditions related to exposure, and so the warming shelters allow people to get out of those elements. And we only had 22 activation nights in 2024 and 2025. I think we had 22 nights in a row. I think longer than that. It was almost a month-long activation when we had that long cold spell. Since I left Oregon, your climate's gotten broken a little bit. Didn't used to get this cold, didn't used to get this hot. But we're obviously dealing with some of those things. Just real quick, street outreach is very key. You'll see a little map there. We use a system called ArcGIS that allows us to actually pinpoint where we have interactions with folks so we can double back and hopefully find them again. Because without that, you can say, well, it was down on Market Street somewhere. But this actually gives us an actual geotag so we can see where trends are, where people are showing up, where they're moving to, and it gives us the ability to be much more effective. All right. Oh, I'm 35 seconds over. I apologize. But yeah, so we're just excited again to be partnering and happy to answer any questions that you have. And I'll hand this off to my next person.
That would be Matt and Sarah. If you're not familiar, a lot of times people downtown, business owners, recently they'll say that there's a lot fewer people who are unsheltered, who are, respectful and responsible, which it makes it feel worse with people who are, they call screamers, because it feels like there's more of them. There's not. But when they do encounter them in your business, a lot of times Matt's the call to come in and help to de-escalate the situation. So, Matt?
Yeah. So I'm hoping to project this morning. Can you all hear me? So prior to my time with Be Bold Street Ministries, I for sure was somebody that you all would have been talking about. I was involved in organized crime. I was trafficking drugs throughout this city, this nation, and different parts of the world. involved in all types of criminality. And then ultimately that led me to losing everything and being homeless in Salem for approximately 10 years. And actually this Saturday will be 10 years out of all of that. No deadly mind altering substances, no gang activity, no criminality. And I get to impact this city in a different way. So we are out on the streets. We are a Christ-centered evangelism ministry. We are meeting people right where they're at with the hopes of seeing them not stay where they're at. And so we are showing up with genuine love, genuine compassion. And I got to share that compassion includes accountability. So we don't placate, we don't co-sign negative behaviors, which is very loving. Those are the folks that I'm super thankful for that I had in my life that sat across from me and loved me enough to have hard conversations with me. And then we're willing to walk through it with me. So we get to do that. We're in Wallace, which is one of the largest encampments in the state. We're in different encampments around Salem and the surrounding areas, but all over the state of Oregon. And so the most important message for us, this is really important for me to share, is the gospel of Jesus Christ, the truth of his death, burial, and resurrection. And if somebody believes on that simplicity and beauty of that message, they are saved and forgiven of their sins. And we will offer the exact same help to every community member, whether they say yes to the gospel or not. And so we are referring people to multiple organizations such as the Union Gospel Mission, Soaring Heights Recovery Homes, Adult and Teen Challenge, Salem Housing Authority, and then we have a bunch of preventative efforts as well. So far this year, we've been able to see 27 more people, including families, not become houseless in Salem. Last year, just shy of 200 people not become houseless and then come up and off the streets in different programs through the funding that God, allows to come through the ministry. And we have significant engagement with people in our community that are involved in addiction. So with the hopes of stopping, people on the streets from using these deadly substances, we engage local organized crime groups, and there are many here in Salem. So we are out sharing the gospel with those folks with the hopes of seeing them exit those organizations and stopping a cycle that is helping destroy our city. We do multiple We See You events. They're large evangelism events, and we bring multiple organizations together. Typically, we're in 60 plus organizations that'll be on site. And at those events, we serve over 1,000 people that are currently unsheltered, specifically in Salem. And so the last one that we had, there was more than 40 churches represented and approximately 30 other social services that were represented. People get saved. We bring in food trucks. We partner with local food vendors, and people make the decision to get off the streets at each one of those events. The next one is July 12th. And you all would be more than welcome to come and see. And it'll be right where the old North Block coffee shop was, right across from Arches, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. So we do those throughout each year, and we continue to walk side by side with people. And just a perfect example, I'm going to bring it up since he's here. This is Aiden. He was encamped at Wallace for 10 years, starting at 12 years old. He was out on the streets. Right. And he was running drugs and involved in criminal activity. And from the confession of his own mouth, he was teaching people to worship evil in Wallace Marine Camp. And we showed up for about 9 years. And the situation he was in was dire and really rough. And I remember it myself, right? Going in and out of hospitals, plagued with all kinds of physical maladies. I was maybe taking a shower 3 times a year. And, I was treated like less than any other community member, right? And so we just keep showing up for people that are denigrated, depreciated, and with the hope of a risen Savior who makes people whole. And so he gets to live a totally new life. He's married to a police officer now after he went to prison, all the things. And so this example, right? So, and I would love to take all of you and introduce you to literally in the 10 years of the ministry, the end of next month, there's thousands of people in our city that are unrecognizable as the people that we met right on the streets. And some of them now manage community partners. Some of them are business owners now. Some of them have started their own nonprofit organizations. And if you came into contact with them, unless they shared it with you, you would have no clue. I used to like stabbing people for fun. Literally, I've been stabbed 14 times, shot twice. My dad was on the streets for 2.5 decades. I know. Today, I'm friendly and approachable. But my dad, like he did 40 years in prisons, gang leader in the Latin Kings. The last 20 plus years of his life was here on the streets in Salem. And he didn't die with a stick built home. Like, but he came to know Christ, and the moment he breathed his last breath, he was in the presence of his Savior. And so we're showing up, we get to refer people to the most excellent way. It's a Christ-centered addictions victory group. That's where I found real victory. So what I get to go out and example by way of the Holy Spirit is not behavior modification, right? It's a heart transformation. And so I'm not a part of any of those things anymore. And we get to see those types of transformations all week. We're reaching at-risk youth. We are going into institutions with preventative measures, because with the institutions in our city, if somebody doesn't have a place to go, they just go to the street. Right? And we have more than 5 major institutions right here in Salem, not including McLaren. And those folks down there, when they get kicked out, if they don't have a place to go, they're going to the streets. So we get to help them come up off the streets, connect with them before so they can transition right into supported housing or a program. And we're not a bunch of data acquisition. We get to share numbers, which is really cool. And we get to introduce you to people. And so we're out hitting the streets every day, and we are in the downtown corridor, have been in the downtown corridor for a time, do a lot with law enforcement. We get to go in and help train law enforcement. You know, we used to get the hot sheet. They had this thing called the hot sheet. So the most calls when it came to people on the streets, and they're all over the city. But yeah, we're out just walking it out, living out a new life, and no longer somebody that is, I guess I'm being talked about in a different way now, you know, and it's not, man, I hope that guy goes to prison. So, yeah, it's amazing, like what we get to do. And I mean, there's so many efforts out there, and we're seeing people walk out real victory through Jesus Christ. Like I'm one of them. Aiden's one of them. Like, you know, referring people to Bridgeway, just, it's amazing. So I hope you all are encouraged, and we're out on the streets every day. What we do is not 9 to 5. It's not a 9 to 5 gig. Like, we get the calls from the families, and we're coming alongside these families, and we get to help educate people, right? Because I am an expert in the drug world and homelessness. So we get to bring truth to the table. And sometimes that can be difficult for people to hear, but it really helps in reference to, you know, successful efforts. So we get to help set people up for success, and we get to do it with a lot of people in our community too. So really grateful to be here today, and would love to connect at some point in time. And we're going to keep doing what God has called us to do, created us to do, and commissioned us to be about for His glory.
Thank you guys for being here and discussing this difficult topic. I'm glad we can end with that, because you know, it's a big issue and it feels overwhelming, and we end with some hope. So that's good. Thank you. And DJ, you're gonna need to grow out the beard if you're gonna match these two.
That's some catching up to do.
I know.
We'll go, if anybody's got a burning question they want to ask, otherwise let's get to our Lieutenant Governor, Kevin Cameron.
Whoa. Wow.
Well, good morning. It's hard to call Matt because I'm supposed to talk about water. Matt just talked about the water life. You know, I've sitting here listening to all these subjects this morning, and I've been an elected official now for over 20 years. So I guess I am considered a politician, not a businessman, but I used to be in this group as a business owner for many years. I'm really glad that Dick Withnell is here, because otherwise I'd be the oldest guy in the room. Thanks, Dick, for coming this morning. Yeah. So,
Too, right?
huh?
You just had a birthday.
Yeah, it made me older. Yeah, younger next year, as John Miller would tell me. I'm supposed to talk about it says on the agenda, the Detroit Lake drawdown. And Tom had said, hey, that's one of the biggest issues to some of my members as to what's going on. And for various reasons, it could be an issue to somebody sitting in this room. If you have a house, I do, or you have a boat and you want to enjoy the recreation, that's a big issue. If you drink water here in Salem, it's a big issue. And so I'll share what I know, the latest about that drawdown, that the history of what we're talking about, and you'll probably read about what happened down in Sweet Home and when they drew down Green Peter and destroyed the kokanee population there, and maybe saved. I have to be careful here because my wife's son works at the hatchery up at Marion Forks, and he said we might have saved one salmon in that drawdown. I'm not going to mention his name, but what's happened is there's been an update to the biop. The first biological opinion was in 2008, and Kathy Clark here, she could probably say everything I'm going to say because Kathy is staff to us at the Detroit Lake Foundation, which I'll get into in a little bit more deep, but I want to get the background. So that biop got updated, and in December, NOAA put out a new biop that basically said one of their recommendations was to draw down Detroit Lake. And what they would do is they would draw it down starting, they would typically, if you ever go, when you drive up there in the summertime, the elevation of the lake is about 1,560 feet. That's when the docks are floating. That's when everybody's having a good time. And then come July, the lake starts to go down because the Army Corps has certain requirements that they have to hit on downstream flows. And just so you know, everybody gets excited because the flows are controlled by Big Cliff Dam. So what's coming out of the Big Cliff Dam down below Detroit is what the flow is. So if you ever want to go on their line and measure what the flow out is, it's Big Cliff. Sometimes you'll see Detroit in the summertime, you'll see water coming over the top. That's because they need to mix the water to keep the temperatures right with the water that's coming down below for the fish. So don't get excited if you see water go, hey, they're just flowing water out of the dam. It's just part of their control deal. But Army Corps was told by NOAA that you need to do this drawdown like what they did down south. The difference of what happened in Sweet Home was that was a court order. A judge, the Army Corps got sued because they weren't performing enough of what the original biop said. And the judge says, you will do this. They put a panel together and the judge says, you will do this. So they're under a court order. Detroit is not a court order. It's a biological opinion recommendations by NOAA. Kathy, correct me if I say anything wrong here. So they got notice of that and they came out and said, okay, we got to prepare for this drawdown. Well, the alarms go off and supposedly they're preparing for this in this next fall. If they do it without doing a environmental assessment, they're going to get sued. And there's some people in this room that'll probably contribute to that lawsuit, including Marion County and the city of Salem, and probably some business people. The Detroit Lake Foundation is preparing for that too, as well as hiring an attorney. So when you talk to the Army Corps local people, Eric Peterson, who's been a really good friend of ours and communications to us and has done everything we've asked as far as meeting, you talk to them and they will say we have to prepare for this, but I don't believe it's going to happen in the fall because of all those things that I just said. So if they do it, or when they do it, here's what will happen. They will have to draw the lake down. In the wintertime, it goes to 1,450 feet from the 1,560 that I said. So when you drive up there in December, you're going to see the lake at its lowest level. In February, they start to raise it up and they follow this curve. What they'll have to do is they'll have to drop it to I believe, Kathy, it was 13, it was another 55 feet. So it was 1395. So they would have to drop it another 55 feet to get these fish to flow through these tubes that are up there down below in the dam. And to do that, they'll have to start earlier. So you talk about, Rich, how we've had these years where we've had to pull out in August. They'll have to start earlier to draw it down to meet that in by December, November, December, and then they'll start bringing it back up. The risk here is for drinking water. If you go down to 1350 or 1395, in 2015, I don't know if everybody remembers it here, but we had a drought and the lake never filled. It never even got to the level of the marinas. And we were in October, we were within days, I mean, days of not having enough. 700 cubic feet is, Vanessa can probably verify this. 700 cubic feet per second has to flow down that river for Salem to draw their water supply. And we were within days of them not being able to have 700 cubic feet, and Salem wouldn't have been able to suck water. Now, if you read the if you read City of Salem's newsletter that just came out, you'll see one of the things they're doing right now is they're testing with Kaiser the water supply. Kaiser and Salem have this backup water supply that runs together, but it only could supply about 30% of the needs of what Salem is. It would come from the wells in Kaiser. So there's this issue. The City of Salem is paying attention to this drawdown. We're paying attention to it. And there's all these people. I'll give you a couple of things. If you really want to get interested in this, on April 7th, which is next Monday, I believe, we have a federal lakes meeting that is starting back up. We used to do these pre-fire. We used to have them quarterly. It's going to be at the Detroit Community Center. You used to do them in Gates. This one's going to be at the Detroit Community Center. I think Army Corps is going to be there. Are they coming? So there'll be more detail about what's happening with the North Santiam water supply. On April 10th, you're not invited, but on April 10th, I am meeting with the board, and I believe Army Corps is coming to the City of Salem that day. Various places. They're bringing a colonel out from Washington, D.C., so he can see and understand boots on the ground what we're really facing here in the area. That's on April 10th. We're meeting with them. We're going to have a lunch at our office. On April 18th, there's a group of us elected officials that are going to be taking a tour of the facilities and getting more information as to how this thing would happen if it was going to happen. And then on April 30th, this is something if you want to really get into water, on April 30th, it's the 14th annual Santiam Basin Summit. And that's where all the water people that are concerned about water, or agriculture, Army Corps, all these people come together, and it's almost a whole day, if I remember right. I have staff. I'll come and go, but Army Corps is on that. And there's lots of things if you want to get into, because it is the new gold, especially here in the Valley. The other thing that's happening, and it's water specific, is we're building a sewer system. And Ryan's here, who's representing Marion County in the building, the crazy house, or I mean the Capitol over there. We're building a sewer system in Mill City and Gates. And we have this thing called the 3 basin rule. I don't know if anybody here knows about it, but it's the Santiam, Clackamas, North Santiam, Clackamas, and the McKenzie River. You cannot direct discharge into those water bodies because of the people that consume water down. That rule was made back in the 70s. Well, since then, technology's advanced. Basically, we can't get the rule changed fast enough to build this system. There's a federal lawsuit, and I think I'm up against my time here. Well, no, I got a little more. There's a federal lawsuit that's called the Maui decision that basically, if you do ground infiltration and it eventually seeps into a body of water, it's the same as direct discharge. That happened in Maui. It destroyed some coral. Supreme Court said, hey, and if you're going to do this, if you're going to do ground infiltration, you have to have a national in-water permit. The three basin rule in Oregon does not allow DEQ to issue a direct discharge permit. So now you have, what we're doing is what we've always done in those three basins, but the law says you can't do that without this permit, and our rule says you can't issue the permit. So now we're building the system. We find this out in the middle of $50 million. It's actually gonna be about a $75 million system, and we can't move forward. So what we did last week, we got the bill out of the Senate. We actually asked DEQ for permission to move forward and start construction, and we'll start construction on that project by May 1st, sometime between May and June, to hit our ARPA deadline that we have to expend that money by December 31st, 2026. So we've got that bill over on the House now, and you're going to give me an update today where we're at, but we're going to get it to the governor's desk, through the House to the governor's desk with an emergency order signed before we can start construction. So that's been a huge priority. AJ's over here smiling. He's not getting any sleep. He's working his butt off. So that's some of the big things that are happening. And I know there's going to be a lot of questions. I just really appreciate all the other conversations here. And I had so many comments I wrote down about what we're doing in those areas. But the last thing I will say, if you want to hear more detail about what's happening in the county, we have our State of the County on the 9th next week at the convention center. You can sign up for free. If you want to have lunch, you got to pay $20. I know I did a lot, covered a lot.
Good. Mark Twain said that whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting over, so that kind of proves that point. So with that, if there's any questions, feel free to raise your hand. We'll try and get you on the docket.
Kevin, I have a question about, like, so you got Gates in Mill City. Does the state understand, or these people, right now, everybody's just, they're dumping, septics are dumping as they are.
Well, it's worse than that, Rich. Mill City is on a sewer system that is in their park, which is really close. DEQ knows this, really close to the river. That sewer system was built for a 30-year life. They're way past that. So Mill City cannot expand, and DEQ is going. We petitioned. I didn't get all the detail. We petitioned for a rule change back in August with DEQ on the three basin rule. That's how long it's going to take until next August. The rec committee, I guess you call it the rec committee. First thing is DEQ said, yes, we're going to hear this rule change, which was a positive. They're now going through this rule change, and they have a group that meets. City of Salem's on that group. We're on that group. There's Enviro's on that group. DEQ's on that group, and they'll go through and make this rule change. And we're hoping they get that done by next August or sooner, because then that allows them to issue the permits that we'll need. Because by a year from now, we'll need to actually fire up the system running potable water through it and testing it. And we can't do that until we have that permit in our hand. So yeah, it's worse than what people think about just septics. There's a whole sewer
So as
system.
an individual, I should be concerned about myself drinking water today. And if I want it better.
I am not. In fact, I would say, well, that's not saying I'm drinking water, but I think they waste their money. I think we have the best water. There's a
theory. In theory, though, I'm saying that, you know, we should be speaking out or trying to speak out in this, that this is going to make the system better.
Oh, yeah. Everybody knows that. DEQ knows it. Everybody knows it. The governor knows it. And the governor's housing initiative and her emergency order, we have property up there that needs to be developed. There's all kinds of potential in Mill City and Gates for development. So getting this online will be a big issue.
Oregon as well as Marion Park, which are the largest.
Say again.
Why, in your opinion, is Wallace Marine Park the largest?
It's one of the largest. So we are all over the state. There's a massively large one over in the Deschutes County too, called Dirt World. So we're in those encampments, and it is one of the largest because I go into those encampments and I see those encampments face to face, based on vastness of dirt world is significant. It's massive, and there's many up in Portland too. It is one of the because the amount of people that are in there. I mean, ultimately, there's so, I mean, is that the question? So, yeah, there's, it's so, I mean, it's been there for a long time. The people that are in there, there's a story behind everybody that's in there. Could be any number of reasons, right? Because it's a known location, has been a known location for quite some time. So people will gravitate towards it. There are some people that'll never go there. For certain reasons, it wouldn't be safe for them to go and try and enter into that encampment. And so, yeah, it's a known location, so people go there. People come out of the institutions, they know that's a place that they can go. They have a council back there, you know, sort of governance, so people get approved. Yeah, so it's a known location.
DJ?
I would say we just put out, we do these myths each month. The myth of like, oh, if you build it, more unsheltered folks will come. And that is a myth based on all the studies that, you know, 8 out of 10 folks literally grew up there, went to school there, where they're experiencing their housing disruption. And I would say Wallace Marine Park is more out of sight, out of mind. Unfortunately, like downtown, you're seeing lots of improvements and there's services that people can access and go to and move forward with their life. And West Salem has been a little bit service resistant, and it's really hard for the city of Salem to do enough enforcement or cleanup in an area that is so out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, I would agree with DJ in that you have the folks that are seeking services tend to be the ones you see in downtown, the ones that are more visible. And I think Wallace Marine attracts those that don't want to necessarily have access to services, aren't wanting that kind of engagement. And so I think there is more of a withdrawal there. And because it's not, you know, like if you see like an encampment, for example, under an overpass, you know, and you want to engage that encampment, it's much simpler because it's kind of localized. There at Wallace, you know, it's in the woods. It's, you know, up against, it's not in a location that's easy to access, even for our outreach teams. I think probably that would be agreed across the board. It's much more difficult to get services in there and that kind of thing. And so for those that are much less open to engagement, then that's a natural draw, I think, because it is easier to basically withdraw from you know, from the community.
So you would say that those people in that encampment just don't want help. They want to be, but I'm not saying like.
Yeah, I think.
They don't want help, but they want to be nested.
Oh, that's my one lifestyle.
Say there, because we're in that encampment every week throughout the week. So there are many people that want help, and there are people that are constantly coming to that encampment because we're there. So I'm speaking from the fact, not from an assumption or a speculation. We're there. We know the people, know many of them for a really long time. So people are constantly coming in and out of there. So within every week, we're going out there and there are new folks that have started to build up camp at Wallace Marine. And so, no, there are a bunch of people that do want help, and we're constantly seeing people transition.
I think it's important to just to remember that each person has their own story and their own reason, has their own, they got to where they are in a very individual path. Sometimes there are similarities, but that's why it's such a challenge, because there's not just one, you know, just one solution to the problem. And so if you, let's say you've got 100 people that are experiencing homelessness, they all have 100 different stories. And so the path for each of them might be a little bit different. And so so it's really kind of the challenge is not to make the issue monolithic, but also but recognize that it's made up of individual people and their stories and their challenges.
Well, thank you guys all for being here.
I just had one quick one. I know you're gonna go. I have a question about the diversion guide. What would you say to me? Are they constantly billing our police?
I wouldn't say they're constantly filled, but we had, this was an example, we had two calls from Salem PD for placement, I think yesterday. And so, I mean, we can go days without there being, and then there are days that we have several, and so it can vary.
This would be one last thing. It's a choice at the end of the day for them to come to you for services, correct?
Oh, sure, yeah, there's, we're not kidnapping people off the street and or anything, but yes, yeah, I mean,
If you
ultimately,
did do that, it would be.
yeah, it would, yeah.
Choice for all of us every day, right?
Right.
And getting to the point of seeking help is hard. So I appreciate the home dealer to continue going out and offering those services over
Yeah.
and over again. I think the final, I'm gonna hold on to that one until later date. Thank you for your service. Really appreciate that.
Lieutenant Younger?
DJ, yeah, I forgot, if you want to get more involved with the lake issue, the Detroit Lake Foundation.org, there is, they branched off, they have a little group called the Detroit Lake Conservancy Effort. And so there's a place you can donate there, more information, you can sign up and get their newsletters, etc. So I don't think I said that.
I was just a young pup at Sumter Elementary when I went to a meeting to replace, was it Jackie?
No, it was Dan Doyle.
Dan Doyle, yes. And
Oh, that was in 2005.
2005, and there was this guy, Kevin Cameron, who I'd never heard about and heard him speak for the first time, and he's the same guy that's sitting here today. So Kevin, thanks for staying engaged.
Well,
And you're making a difference, and we appreciate that. Thanks to all of you, guys. Everybody, kids, every time we drive by, and Kevin, my son will say, Dad, why are you not doing something like that? I said, you are way better, way more qualified, have a way bigger heart than I do. Thank you for what you're doing. Thanks to all of you again for the taxes you pay and what you do. We're gonna get you out of here to go back and make some more money to help fund all these operations. Thank you. Have a good.